What does a more robust definition of sustenance mean?
At its core, its current definition is based on individual stuff that you pull like from the water, from the ground, and you put on the table, and that's it. The moment that you could sell any of that stuff, it's not within that. So it has this very individualistic and limiting definition, and that's probably by design, but it doesn't reflect that food is and always has been more about, community. That's one of the ways that we get food security is through being able to trade within our families and related groups. But that's also where people teach and they learn the values, even values related to river restoration and how you care for waterways. That's also like, so there are classrooms, like sites of sustenance. They also function in terms of like spirituality. So I think just the definition as it currently is doesn't think about food's role within the community or what that means economically for indigenous people, or that again this is where we're teaching the knowledge and values of our culture. Or again, even these are like, if you think of waterfalls or sites of sustenance as like our churches, we're going to these places and we're living there and being who we are in the world. It's all those things. So it's limited if it's just thinking about the stuff that ends on the table, because it's more powerful than that.
And even though clearly the English definition of sustenance has tended toward, and the state's policy has tended toward that individual securing of some food that you can eat but not trade, pass on. That's not necessarily the only way of looking at it, because the Canadian Supreme Court at least was able to come up with the reasonable livelihood definition of sustenance. I mean, they didn't, in the decision, get into the ramifications of things beyond the economic aspects of trade. They didn't get into the cultural and all that. But the definition that the state of Maine has tried to use and enforce is not the only one that had to come out of the Anglo jurisprudence system.
You can see that pattern repeated elsewhere too. And I think that most recent violence against the Mi'kmaq Nation in Canada is evidence of that, and how contentious that can be.
Oh, I mean, there's no question it would be contentious. You don't have to look very far today to see the way people who have had a privileged position that they don't really recognize for many years react when someone gets the ability to do something or have something that they don't. It becomes a real flashpoint and a point of violence. Change always causes some conflict.
Sure. I think in the case of Indigenous knowledge and management, though, it continues to show that there's not a threat to the resource, but it provides a more robust ecosystem. And coming back to the Sea Run Fisheries report, it's another evidence of that. So fishers may be frightened of taking resource because that's just the experience that their system of management has had. It's always just declining in fisheries and creating more pressure on other ones. Bringing Indigenous management back into that conversation helps think about things in a different way. This is a over 300-year dispute where Wabanaki people are still advocating for access to these places, not just for fish to go to the stream, but so they can enact these lifeways. It's over 300 years. And if it continues for another 300 years, Wabanaki people will still be there advancing the conversation. And the report shows they've already advanced it so much. The next step is like, since they are becoming leaders in this space, how do they then become active managers in this space? And that's where I see this conversation go.